Football Social Daily with German Doner Kebab. Get it delivered to your door via Deliveroo or Uber Eats.
Hello, welcome to Football Social Daily, your only daily Premier League podcast. Well, I say daily, but that's not currently the case. We've scaled back for the time being due to the lack of on-field action, but we'll still be here bringing you at least 3 new podcasts a week, so hit the subscribe button if you're new around here, and you'll be notified of a new episode as soon as it's released. Absolutely loads to go on today's podcast, including apparent suggestions from a Watford director that the Premier League are about to scrap the season. Is this a stab in the dark from a club in need, or a director letting the cat out of the bag? Also, after Jack Grealish and Kyle Walker, you can now add Jose Mourinho to the list of rule breakers during this lockdown. The Spurs boss was spotted in a North London park giving a one-on-one training session with Tanguy and Domblé when both should have been isolating. And if that didn't annoy Tottenham enough, the duo weren't the only Spurs players out and about either, in the very same park. We'll talk about that. Plus, reports claim that a US document has revealed FIFA officials supposedly received bribes to vote for the Russia 2018 and Qatar 2022 World Cups. Is anyone surprised? I'm Niall, and alongside me on today's Football Social Daily to chew the fat we have Marley Anderson and Adam Keyworth. Hello, boys.
Hello.
Hello.
Before we get stuck into the nitty-gritty, a quick reminder that over on our Twitter page at The Sports Social, we're currently in the middle of the intelligently named Premier League World Crap, which is our knockout tournament to find who is truly the worst Premier League player of all time. Group A saw ex-Man United keeper Massimo Taibbi see off the likes of Marco Boogers and Bernardo Corradi. And in yesterday's group, the enigmatic Ali Dia came out on top ahead of strong competition like Joe and Titus Bramble. But there's another group today. We're not done. We still need to find our other 2 finalists. So then, Marley, what terrible top-flight players have we got in today's group?
So today we've got a few stinkers. Obviously, there's 16 stinkers in total. But Group 3 is live from midday today. It's going to be a 4-way vote as usual. So we've got Josie Altidore, who was my personal pick for this whole thing. And then there's also Alberto Aquilani, who's cost 20 million quid from when Liverpool bought him a few years back. Also we've got Savio Nsereko, who came from Germany to West Ham for a pretty large fee and did absolutely nothing. And there's also Winston Bogarde, who counts Chelsea and Barcelona amongst his previous employers. However, just sat around at Chelsea and refused to leave because he was getting paid 45 grand a week and no one else would do it. So it's a pretty stinking group.
I've just had a look at Group 2. So Ali Diaz won Group 2, and I've voiced my opinions on this on Twitter. I think that Joe has been scammed out of a place in the final. Ali Dia wasn't a footballer, so I think that there's some dodgy behaviour.
I don't know. I don't think you should exclude him just because he's not a footballer. He still played.
To be fair, some of these other players were Premier League footballers. Apparently, he literally was pretending to be a footballer. So fair play.
It is an open group, as Marley says, and we got time to talk about it later on in the show. I personally think Aquilani is really hard done by to be in that group, but we'll talk about that later on in the show. First of all, we need to get down to the nitty-gritty. Reports from Italy are claiming that Watford director Pierpaolo Mourinho has said that the Premier League are about to release a statement similar to what the Belgian FA released last week. If you haven't seen this, Belgium have already ended their league, with Club Bruges announced as champions, despite the fact it wasn't mathematically confirmed. In your mind, Adam, is this a Watford director speculating to accumulate? Of course, Watford are in the relegation zone at this moment in time. Or has he actually let the cat out of the bag here, do you feel?
I think that this has probably been a misquote somewhere along the line. I think, as we've heard from the FA and UEFA and FIFA, it looks like UEFA are trying to tell leagues and associations not to panic and make a panicked decision. The thing with Belgium, the Belgian league, is they only had 1 game left that would have changed anything. So I think that's why they could just jump the gun and get over it. I can't see a Premier League decision being made anytime soon. I think the best thing that leagues can do is just put everything on ice and wait. I think jumping to any conclusion at this point is just going to be detrimental. Nobody knows when we're going to be out of this situation. So saying now, we'll just scrap it, when in 2 months' time it could have become possible to finish it. I can't see the Premier League, with all the money being involved, just jumping to a conclusion in April for something that we might not even see till July, August. So for me, that is either a misquote or he's just trying to give some positivity to Watford fans who are probably in fear of relegation, like you say.
Yeah, Marley, if this is maybe a misquote, or even if this is an accurate quote, how do these comments impact Watford and their fans? For instance, if this is not true, does it give false hope to supporters, making them think that maybe they'd be allowed to stay up?
I think Watford fans probably haven't given up on the fact that they think they can survive anyway. So it seems a bit defeatist if they're hoping that everything gets voided because of a potential misquote by one of their directors, who's also got other businesses on the go as well. So it might have been, like Adam said, a misquote in terms of maybe he was talking about the maybe referring a bit more to the Italian league, because he's obviously got sources in Udinese as well. He's obviously in the directors board there as well. So it's I can't see him knowing anything that others don't. Do you know what I mean? Like I can't see him being on the inside loop of anything, to be honest.
Watford are in a precarious position in the league table, so maybe not in your mind, but is there a chance that he's more likely to know the Premier League's wishes more than maybe a mid-table club who won't be as badly affected if the season is voided?
I think if the Watford director, not even the owner, if one Watford director knows the Premier League's plans ahead of anyone else, and he's the one to let it out the bag, I'd be absolutely stunned. I can't see a director from any club going, you know what, I'm the one who knows the Premier League's plans. He's not an owner. He's not I'm not going to say he's not important. He obviously is as a director at Watford and Udinese, but he's not going to be the one who knows the story before everyone else, surely. I mean, I know that the Premier League's comms can be bad at times, but that would be a hell of a slip-up to let this guy suddenly be the one who leaks the Premier League's plans for the entire season.
But I suppose then an argument would be, because Watford are going to be in more trouble if this season is voided. They will be relegated if the stand-ins are taken as they are now. I mean, if you look at a club like Everton, for example, who are in mid-table, then they're probably not going to find out the information because it's not going to affect them as badly financially, I suppose, Marley. I guess that would be one argument.
I suppose it would be an argument, but I honestly think that even the guys at the top of the Premier League, the ones that are actually making the decision, I don't even think they know a decision yet, because, as we've said for the last few weeks, you got to play everything by ear at the minute. I mean, if you look at in Germany, they're starting to train in small groups now, so they've clearly got over the worst of this virus and are looking at the other side of getting things played and getting things done. So I think there's going to be more optimism going forward if we can follow that at some point, whether that's May, June or July, something like that. We can finally start getting over it.
I think the other thing is, what's to suggest that any clubs would be relegated anyway? Surely the more, I don't know, not sensible, but the more obvious choice would be that nobody gets relegated. So I think to suggest that the potential relegated teams being told before anyone else, I highly doubt. I think still Liverpool are set to lose a lot, and then obviously you've got the Championship clubs potentially going up. They're the other ones who are set to lose a lot. So I think, like Marley says, it's such a fluid situation that this isn't going to be let out the bag by a director.
Well, what the quote suggested, if it is accurate, is that the statement that the Premier League are due to release, if we're believing this, is going to be similar to that the Belgian FA released. So if it is similar to Belgium, I guess that means Liverpool will be awarded the Premier League title.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's got to the point, and we've had this conversation off the podcast, where I don't think, I mean, you've got to be really bitter and whatever else at this point with what's going on. If Liverpool get handed the title, fine. I don't think anybody really cares at this point. Let them have it. They're obviously deserving of it in the fact that they'd need to lose basically every single game anyway. I don't think anybody really cares. I think it's at the point now where there's many Liverpool fans who don't really care either. It's got to the point where this argument's been going on for so long. They would have won it by now.
Yeah.
Anyway, if the league was going on.
Bruges were 15 clear.
Exactly. And you can't compare it to the Belgian league. In the Belgian league, there was one game left. Bruges were miles ahead. Ghent were the only one. Yeah, with one to go. The only issue was the Champions League places, where there's 2 points separating the 3 potential Champions League spots. But they were always going to give the title to Bruges because there was one game left. So, like I said earlier, that's one of the only leagues in Europe where there's one game to go. There's not a lot to separate. They've got that incredible playoff system anyway, where they can just kill the league off as it is and then look at the playoffs another time. We're in a different position. The Premier League itself, and then in the EFL, there's 396 games left to play, and we're now in April. We're in a much more precarious position than many other places in Europe, especially when it comes to money and just kind of the way I think our fans work as well. It's a really weird scenario, and I'm very grateful it's not me who's having to make the decision, whatever that may be.
Well, we've said unanimously on the podcast for about 3 weeks in a row now, Marley, that completing the current season is a priority. Keezy says put it on ice. I'm probably in the same boat as that. I think the season that we're in now should be completed. So could cancelling the season be more damaging than actually completing the current one? It feels like we're all at sea at the moment in terms of making a decision. But actually, it's going to be a case of damage limitation for the Premier League, isn't it? It's going to be damaging financially for them no matter what decision they make.
Yeah, definitely. And as we've said, you can't please everyone. Somebody's going to be annoyed at whatever decision you're going to make, but you're going to have to take it on the chin. And maybe even in some cases that might end up in court cases and potential people suing people for loss of earnings or what have you. I don't really think there is a way to please everyone. So if you void it, that seems harsh and not really a decision. I don't think there's any real disadvantage to just waiting. It doesn't really matter when you finish it; just finish it eventually. FIFA advised that the player contracts need to be sort of temporarily extended so players can have their short-term futures sorted out. And as soon as that gets sorted out, I think then you're not really in a situation where you can't wait anymore. Seasons can be moved back. It's not really an issue, really. So let's just do that.
That's exactly it, isn't it? That's exactly it, in that if FIFA have said that player contracts will be extended to whenever the leagues have finished, that should you should kind of note that as a precursor to, well, maybe that's what's going to happen. The issue is, if the Premier League are going to lose money, the broadcasters are going to lose money, fans have lost money, players are going to lose money, everyone's going to feel this knock-on effect. And at the end of the day, nobody saw this coming. People are going to be upset at what happens, but in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter when the season gets played, if it gets played? The other thing is, what happens to next season? If you now delay this season and it finishes in September, we're then already a month into next season. We haven't had a summer break. There's been no transfer window. This is going to affect football for the next 3-4 years regardless.
My solution to that is bin off the cups for next season, but that's a story for another time, and we'll talk about player contracts and the moving of the transfer window and players' contracts being extended on tomorrow's podcast for certain. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you'll be listening to that whenever that's available. On to our next story now. Jose Mourinho. He's got into a bit of hot water. He held a training session in a park in Barnet with Tanguy and Ndombele, when really both the player and the manager should have been self-isolating. Tottenham are said to be really, really annoyed about this, and understandably so. We've seen Jose Mourinho do some good work in the community in regards to supporting those affected with COVID-19. We've seen him, don the mask and gloves and help deliver food parcels to people in areas of North London. So, those great things, Marley, that Jose did volunteering in the community over the last couple of weeks, is that respect kind of eroded a little bit now due to the fact he's broken government guidelines by holding a training session with himself and Ndombele in a park?
It's typical Mourinho, this, isn't it? He just cannot, even when the country is in lockdown, he cannot stay out of the headlines, and he still managed to do something that gets people talking about him. I mean, I'm just reading the story. He went to the park and he was wearing his purple hoodie thing, his tracksuit. It's like as if you can't be like, if you were trying to be secretive about it. Wear black or something. Wear navy or something like that. But now I'm wearing my purple coat, lads. Come on. It's just stupid, isn't it? It's there's literally no need for it to happen. But it's clear that he's had problems with Ndombele all season, so it's something else that he's then said, right, Tanguy, while you're not doing anything, let's try and make you a better player by coming to London Common and doing a few drills on a London piece of grass in London. So it's a weird situation. I don't know why he's done it. It still remains that he's done more than any other manager in terms of going. I've never seen any other managers going out into the community and feeding all the people that are vulnerable, but he does seem to have kind of undone it a little bit now by doing this, and Sessegnon and Davinson Sanchez were there as well, so it's clearly being organised by him.
The amazing thing is about this story is that it wasn't Jose and Ndombele, it wasn't just them, they weren't the only Spurs employees to be in that park. Apparently Sanchez and Sessegnon, as you say, Marley, were spotted in the same park in Barnet on the same day, training together, but not with Jose and not with Ndombele. If this story couldn't get any wilder, Tottenham Hotspur have got even more issues on their hands, Adam.
I think I've actually had a read into that. They live together, so we can accept that one. So they live together, Sessegnon and Sanchez, apparently, in the same apartment thing. So if that's true, we can kind of let them off. I think the Jose thing, though, I'm happy to separate Jose doing really, really good things, which he should be really applauded for and given all the credit for, because that's a really good thing to do and something that other people should clearly do. And a lot have done similar things. But this whole going and doing some training in the park with Ndombele is just pathetic. There's absolutely no need to, whilst other clubs are kind of winding down the training regimes in the knowledge that there's not going to be any football for a couple of months, he's decided to go out in his Tottenham tracksuit in central London to have a kickabout with Ndombele, having everyone else or I say everyone else, most people are just doing what they should be doing, staying at home, and he's decided to do this. I don't know if he's done it for publicity or he's done it to make a point, but it's just really, really poor. And I really feel sorry now for whoever's running the PR and the comms department at Spurs, because they've had the worst week of their lives this week. And things like this just make everyone else's job harder. Tottenham fans this week on Twitter have been coming out and saying some really stern things about, I'm falling out of love with my club because some of the things they've done, the furloughing of the staff, Levy saying he won't help. Then you don't need your manager then to go and do this when fans are genuinely embarrassed about the club. So it's a repair job that someone's going to have to put together, but you need your manager really to look after it. You expect some of this from some of the players, like from Walker and Grealish. We saw some really stupid things, but you don't expect someone like Mourinho to then go and break these regulations that they really should be encouraging everyone to stick by.
How do clubs go about punishing those people who've broken guidelines, though? As you mentioned, City with Walker, Villa with Jack Grealish, and now Spurs with Jose and Ndombele. So, I mean, what's the kind of the best case scenario in terms of making sure that they do realise that this won't be tolerated, along with kind of ensuring that you kind of keep the harmony there? It's a tough one for clubs, Marley.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, obviously, something has to be done. It's something that probably lends itself to the punishment of a fine. There's not really much else you can do. I mean, they've broke the rules. What do footballers get when they break the rules? A fine. Simple as that. There's no point in giving somebody. You can't ban your own players for doing things like this. I don't think it's not. It's not something that's come from the Premier League, so that isn't really going to be a problem. So I don't know. It's one of them where you've just got to look at him and say, well, come on, like, this is bigger than football. People see you out, you're a role model and all the rest of it. It's a big park in London. It's gonna have its problems with people gathering in it anyway. Never mind the crowd that would have flocked once they seen that Jose Mourinho was in the park. There's probably more people now going to that park to see potential other footballers that go there and see if they can spot anyone, and that just creates more of an issue, because then there's more people not following this social distancing rule, and for the ones that are, they're stuck in the houses, and it could be another few weeks of lockdown while people are flouting the rules, that annoys me, because I've been stuck in my house for 2 weeks now, and I don't really know what else I can do, to be honest. I'm starting to run out of things to watch on Netflix. I'm starting to win everything on Pro Evo. I'm starting to go mad. I've even started jogging.
Well, that really does take something. Marley is out the house jogging. That is,
I know.
That is something. You'd be downloading Strava next.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna bore everyone with my Strava updates soon.
On that, Niall, I think Marley's spot on there that you can't ban your own players. I mean, they're already not able to play football for months anyway. That would be very silly. But I think the two things footballers have, one is loads of money, so fining them is just going to be like, yeah, okay, I'll give up 2 weeks' wages. I'll just sit on the rest of the millions. That's fine. But the other thing is their image, and this is what they've been punished for already, and that's the key thing for most players. Grealish hasn't always had the best image anyway, which I often disagree with, because I think he's a great footballer and he seems like a decent bloke. But this won't help his image. It's not going to help his standing with football fans. And Walker's image has just gone down the toilet as well. So they'll be punished for it in other ways that won't just be monetary or bans or whatever. They've now realised, oh my God, people think I'm an idiot. And that's just as big for footballers as a 3-week fine or whatever they're going to get, which is a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, and I think as well, in that situation, it takes a lot longer for people to forget all of the negative and the bad things that people do, as opposed to all the good things that kind of make up for that. For instance, Steven Gerrard, as brilliant a footballer as he was, will mainly be remembered for Istanbul and dragging Liverpool back into that Champions League final in 2005, which they won. But for a certain generation, and for me to an extent, he'll also be remembered equally for that slip against Chelsea, in which Demba Ba let him through. And the positives that Steven Gerrard had in his career, and this is talking on the field and not even off the field actions, completely outweighs that of the negatives. But sometimes it is those negatives that stick in the general public's mind.
Exactly. You've got Jack Grealish has just led his boyhood team to a cup final at Wembley as captain, as a young lad. And this year, he won't be remembered for that. He'll be remembered for going to a party with Ross McCormack, or whoever it was, when he should have been on lockdown. It's a really simple thing that footballers always get wrong. And it's silly, isn't it? And I think the other thing, the point Marley makes about them being role models, sometimes you can disagree with that and say, well, they shouldn't be. But Mourinho, of all people, like you say, parks in London are getting shut because people are going and sunbathing and going out as families for picnics and barbecues. He's not going to help that by taking his superstar footballers down Hackney Park or whatever it is. Just go and stay at home. It's not difficult. This isn't a time to start making a fool of yourself. So, yeah, really silly behaviour, and no doubt, unfortunately, there'll be more of it. But
I've written down here on my notes, what more is there to say about situations like this other than, for God's sake, basically? I mean, what else? You just throw your hands up, don't you? Go, oh, for God's sake, you know.
If Marley's out jogging and keeping himself to himself, everyone else can just chill out.
Well, in that case, we can chill out for a bit and Marley can have a bit of a rest. I know he hasn't been jogging today, but we've been talking enough about these issues on Football Social Daily for the time being, so we are going to take a quick break, and afterwards we'll be talking about Marley's favourite person in the world, actually, Alan Shearer, and what his suggestions are regarding players and their contribution to the fight against coronavirus, as well as some interesting reports published about FIFA corruption. We'll have more after this on Football Social Daily.
Football Social Daily with German Doner Kebab. Fancy something different for tea? Get takeaway delivery now via Deliveroo and Uber Eats. Football Social Daily. Subscribe to the podcast now so you never miss an episode.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast. This is Football Social Daily from Sports Social. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit subscribe and you'll never miss another episode of the podcast again. We're still here. Despite all this lockdown, we'll still have Premier League podcasts for you over the coming weeks and months. Well, one thing we know for certain is Alan Shearer's view on the whole situation. He said that he thinks players should decide amongst themselves how to help with coronavirus. I want to know, Marley, is this wishful thinking from your idol, from the big man, or does it actually have potential? Should players be putting their heads together and deciding how they can help contribute to this fight against COVID-19?
Well, if God says it, then fair enough, innit? No, I mean, looking at what he said. I mean, obviously we talked last week about the health secretary, Matt Hancock, basically throw Premier League and footballers in general under the bus by saying they should be helping out with all their millions that they're on. Obviously, it's not as cut and dry as that. There's things like if you take a pay cut, then that means you pay less tax. So then you're paying less tax that you already pay that goes towards the NHS. So that isn't really a cut and dry solution, as many people think it. As many people sort of said it would be. So I think what Shearer said, I mean, players should decide amongst themselves. I would agree with that, because it is on you as a player. If you've got 20 million in the bank, what is 500,000 to you? It's not much, but it's a massive amount to the NHS. How many pieces of personal protection equipment could you get for that? How many scrubs? How many 3D printers to print masks? How many ventilators could you potentially buy? There's loads of things that money could be used for, rather than sitting in someone's bank account. But it is up to them, because if you take a pay cut and it comes out of the money that comes from your employer, there is things like tax you have to think about. So it's not just a lump sum. Whereas if you give it to the NHS, then it is a lump sum. It's like a gift. There's no tax to pay on it. There's nothing monetary. There's no deductions that come from it and that kind of thing. So it is on players themselves, and you've just got to hope that enough of them have enough sense of duty that they can make this decision for themselves, and they don't have to be like pressured into it, kind of thing, and make the wrong decision by refusing, because it would take a very brave and a very stupid person to say, well, I'm not giving up why should I give up my 60 grand a week to save people's lives? That takes a big bumhole to do that. So you need to have a bit of humility in this situation, I think, and if you have got enough money and you can help other people, then why wouldn't you?
I think coming at this from a bit of a different angle, I think, and I know this sounds very strange, I think United have done all of the right things pretty much throughout this whole situation that's going on. They've all decided between them, the players, that some of their wages will go directly towards NHS charities rather than taking the pay cut, which is great. I think the main thing for me, and the main point, and it's probably not the most popular point, is it's not on us. It's not even on footballers to give money to the NHS. That's literally the government's job, is to fund the NHS. And if it's getting to a point where footballers are paying for PPE, and they have been, we're in a bigger... This is a totally different conversation about, well, it's literally not our jobs. And I think United, even yesterday, they cleaned out all of Old Trafford for food, for supplies, and giving that directly to people is one thing that I've been really impressed by. We even mentioned before with Mourinho, going out and helping people is going to be as big of an issue as anything else. There's charities this year who are going to lose £4 billion because they've got no events to put on, and like the marathon is the biggest charity event of the year. It's not happening, so all the charities are going to suffer. Marley's right, there's no cut and dry answer, but I do think that Shearer's right here. It's the players between them are bigger, older enough, they've got their own money, they've got their own financial advisors to work this out. Taking a pay cut is just going to... It's not at the detriment. Obviously, it's going to look good as a PR move, but the money's going straight back in the owners' pockets. If the owners aren't paying the players aren't paying as much tax, it's not going to help anyone. So I think United have got it right. The players came together and decided what to do with the money, and I hope that more clubs and more players do it, and they will. We read that thing about Henderson had spoken to captains. We know one was Maguire, because United went and did it, and I think over the coming weeks we'll see more people do it. You saw Pep give £1 million to charity in Barcelona to help with their hospitals, so this will become the norm, and so it should, but it's worth pointing out that it's not really on footballers to do this, and it's almost come from a wrong position of advice where, footballers should be doing this because they're on loads of money. There's loads of people in this country who are on loads of money. It's not up to bloody, I don't know, name me a rubbish footballer. It's not on them to start paying for gloves for the NHS. Like, it's a really, really weird amount of pressure to be putting on like a chastised part of society just because they're on good money. There's loads of people. Go and start speaking to the bankers if you want loads of money. This has all come from that stupid Hancock thing anyway, which the less said about that, the better. But I think what some clubs are doing is right, and I hope, like Marley rightly said, I hope God is right in this in this regard, and I hope that more players do things, and they will.
God's always right.
We know, right, in that case, they will do it. They should listen to Shearer.
Well, we look forward to seeing what the Premier League players' contribution is. As you both say, I'm sure we will see some sort of goodwill gesture from the players. And as you mentioned, Keezy, Jordan Henderson has been leading Premier League captains in an incentive to perhaps generate or create a new NHS foundation fund in which money can be paid into that account by Premier League players and then divvied out where required to the NHS in certain areas. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. But finally, we're going to talk about reports that claim that a document published by the United States revealed that FIFA executives were paid in bribes to vote for the Russia 2018 and Qatar 2022 World Cups. Now, we need to be careful what we say here, and we need to claim that this is certainly just reports that we've seen at the moment. We're not saying this is true. We're not saying this is false. This is only reports that we have seen online, that a document has been published by the United States suggesting that FIFA execs were paid in bribes to vote for the Russia 2018 and Qatar 22 World Cups. My first question, and this will go to you, Keezy, is anyone surprised about this?
If you could see the look on my face when I say, I, for one, I am stunned. No, this is the same every year. We see the same reports and the same things. Nobody's surprised that Qatar, a nation who've never been known for football ever, have ended up with a World Cup. I wonder how that's come about. It's the same old story. It's a load of nonsense. The Russia one's probably a little bit different politically, and the Qatar one's different politically, but FIFA is basically a political organisation. That's how things work. It's all done on votes, and it's done with different, how would you put it, just different aspirations and different ambitions, be that financial or in football's main interest. You only have to look at the Qatar World Cup and all the people who've died trying to make it happen to work out that it probably wasn't a good idea. And they probably weren't prepared for it. So it doesn't surprise me, and it's going to be the worst World Cup ever, regardless. So.
Do you think this information, Marley, could jeopardise the World Cup in 2022, or are we pretty much dead certain to see that go ahead no matter what now?
I think we're resigned to seeing it. I think all this can really do, to be honest, is prompt a reform in how we award World Cups in future and European Championships and what have you. There's been many cases of, hang on, how have they got this rather than X country? Whether that be, I mean, look at the Europa League final last year as well, when it was in Baku in Azerbaijan, and you had to get 60,000 Chelsea and Arsenal fans to get to, the arse end of some country which was 4,000 miles away, just to see the teams play a game on I think it was on a Wednesday night as well. So
yeah, and they didn't have the infrastructure, did they? In Azerbaijan, they simply did not have the facilities to cope with that many people at once.
Exactly, and neither did Qatar really, until they started building all these stadiums, and then you can then look into the human rights issues they've got and all the rest of it. So it's all a mess, really.
You only had to look at the fact that they had to change a tradition that's been going on for, I don't know, 60 years of World Cups? More, 70, 80 years of the World Cup, to make it happen in winter, because they decided to put it in Qatar and then went, oh, bloody hell, it's hot there, isn't it? We're not going to be able to do it. The whole thing's been a shambles from day dot anyway. They've decided, we're going to have to build 1 million new stadiums because we haven't got one. Then they've done that, killed loads of people, or loads of people have died, should I say. And now it's going to be in winter, which jeopardises that season. So the whole thing's a shambles, and nobody's going to enjoy it like a normal World Cup. You want the World Cup to be in summer, where you can go out drinking with your mates. You don't want to be sat inside some sweaty pub because it's 0 degrees outside in your big coat.
I think it's worth mentioning as well. We say football's the global game, it's the world game. So I think there is an argument that the World Cup could be staged in different countries. However, changing it from its traditional summer slot, I do think, does raise some questions. Holding it in a country like Qatar, as Marley mentions, does have questions regarding its human rights record, but also the culture in the Middle East, in Qatar in particular, is very different. So you don't tend to see bars in the Middle East in those countries like Qatar and the UAE and stuff, because simply it's a Muslim culture in which they don't tolerate drinking alcohol. So you will have, there's going to be more countries in the World Cup in the next few years, isn't there? They've upped the capacity in terms of the amount of countries that take part. So you will see a big sea change in terms of how the World Cup is consumed. You mentioned there it'll be in the winter. There probably won't be much capacity for drinking for those fans that want to make the trip over to Qatar. So there are going to be some big changes that need to be made by FIFA. And it does make you wonder why the decision was made to hold it in Qatar when there's so much finicky stuff that goes along with changing all of this kind of scheduling around.
Hardly surprising though, is it? The fans always come last, if we're being honest, in all levels of football. Well, mainly, but definitely at the world level, nobody really cares. You only had to look at that Baku final to work out the last on the list of priorities was fans, because they hadn't even worked out that fans couldn't get there. So they're not going to be bothered about how many fans turn up. They're still going to get the big broadcast deals and whatever other deals go on around the World Cup. So I don't see as fans why anyone would really want to go. Do you really want to go and spend your winter in Qatar, where the rules are very different and you're always going to be a little bit on edge because you don't really know the rules? And yeah, it's not for me. Not for me.
Okay, from the World Cup to the Premier League World Crap. That's where we're going to finish on today's Football Social Daily. We mentioned at the top of the show we are hunting for the worst ever Premier League footballer. We've got 4 groups, 16 players, all of them terrible, but only 4 can make it through to the final. But Marley, as we mentioned earlier, a very interesting group to get through today. Just remind us of the names in today's group, which people can vote for on our Twitter page.
So we've got Josie Altidore, the Sunderland striker who scored, I think it was 2 goals in 70 games. Alberto Aquilani, who moved to Liverpool for, I think it was 20 million euros, probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. Savio Nsereko, who went from, I think it was Freiburg in Germany maybe. He went to West Ham and was absolutely useless. And Winston Bogarde, who played in that Chelsea team just before they got their money, the sort of takeover by Abramovich. He was there for a few years and just flat out refused to move because he was on 45 grand a week.
So far, we've got Massimo Taibbi through, we've got Ali Dia through, and in this group, Altidore, Aquilani, and Nsereko and Bogarde. Now, Altidore's your choice, Marley. And to be fair, when you read his record, 1 goal in 70 games, oh goodness, I think he's the favourite in this group.
I hope so, because he fully deserves it.
I like the idea of Aquilani winning this one.
Oh, I think that's harsh, Keezy. I really do. I know he wasn't at his best at Liverpool, and I know we're taking it on their Premier League performances. But he was loaned to Juventus and played pretty much every game the season after. Was Aquilani really that bad, or were Liverpool just terrible at that time as well?
I just want to throw him in because he's got a very enviable career clubs thing. He's played at Roma, Juve, Milan, Fiorentina, Sporting, Las Palmas, and kind of just got away with it. I think he scored like 25 career goals. So he's managed to dig out this incredible career. He moved to Liverpool for that much money, having scored 13 goals in 150 games.
Yeah, for an attacking midfielder, you'd expect a little bit more, wouldn't you?
And I just love the idea that he's managed to carve out this incredible career. Obviously not being very good. He just looks like a really good midfielder. If you look at him, he screams, oh my God, he's going to be really good.
He's got the long hair, he's got the headband, he's got the surname. I thought it was a bit harsh when I saw his inclusion. But I'm probably going to side with Marley and go with Altidore, which means that for us, Nsereko and Bogarde are going to get away with it. But we should really probably mention about how bad both of those players were. Nsereko...
Is he a striker? Oh my God, he's got 11 career goals in 13 years. He's
also got age group caps for Germany as well.
He's the most West Ham signing I've ever seen. They signed him for £9 million after he'd played 22 games in 3 years. Wow, he was given the number 10 shirt. Oh my God, he was given the number 10 shirt on a 4.5-year contract at West Ham.
So yeah, maybe, and Sissoko deserves a look in, but Winston Bogarde as well, Marley, was another terrible player.
Yeah, I've just looked up the quote. I can remember. So starting off with Winston Bogarde, let's have a look at his career path. 94, he was at Ajax. Then he went to AC Milan. Then he went to Barcelona. Then he went to Chelsea. So he sounds like a mint player. He's like, oh my God, that's a career path anyone would be proud of. He ended up at Chelsea in 2000, 2001, signed a 4-year deal, and played 9 games. So as managers didn't like him, they tried to put him. Well, they did put him in the reserves and the under-23s. And he was obviously on the transfer list, and nobody could agree a deal with him because he was on, I think it was 40 or 45 grand a week. But then he said, somebody asked him, why are you still here? You're clearly not playing. And this is the exact quote he said: "Why should I throw €15 million away when it's already mine? At the moment I signed it, it was in fact my money. It's my contract." In the end, he only appeared 11 times during 4 years, 4 years at Chelsea, earning 40 grand a week. And it is another level of stubbornness to say, "This is my money. I'm having it."
Have you seen the other quote? This is another incredible quote. And after you hear this quote, he should be crowned the worst ever Premier League player. Here's his exact words: "The world is about money. So when you offer me these millions, you take them. Few people will ever earn so many. I am one of the few fortunates who do. I may be one of the worst buys in the history of the Premiership, but I don't care."
Wow,
this man
unbelievable! He looks like a bouncer as well, Winston Bogarde. If you see a photo of him, you wouldn't want to bump into him on the door of a nightclub in Kensington. That's for sure.
He's incredible, right? He's my choice now. I love him. I absolutely love him. Wow, and then he retired. He retired because nobody wanted to sign him after all that.
Retired in 2005.
Oh my God, this guy.
Well, the choice is yours, not ours, thankfully. You can get your say over on the Sports Social Twitter account. It's at the Sports Social. We need your votes on our poll to let us know who goes through to the final along with Massimo Taibi and Ali Dia. Josie Altidore, Alberto Aquilani, Savio and Sissoko, or Winston Bogarde are your choices. And tomorrow's group: Roberto, Igor Stepanovs, Milton Nunez and Bebe. So some stinkers still to get through. We'll be discussing them on a podcast a little bit later on. So make sure you hit subscribe. But that's it for today's show. Thanks very much, Adam. Thanks very much, Marley.
Cheers for having us.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. I've been Niall McCorn. Thanks for listening, and make sure you hit subscribe. You won't miss a show again.
Football Social Daily with German Doner Kebab. Fancy something different for tea? Get takeaway delivery now via Deliveroo and Uber Eats.